Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why and how of newspaper reading. Today we will discuss the articles displayed on the screen from the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 3rd May 2019. So let us start our discussion. Now this article on page number 1 is related to an extremely severe cyclone which is named as Fani, which is hitting the eastern coast of India near Odisha. So in this article let us try to understand how is this cyclone Fani different from other normal cyclones that occur in the coastal areas of India? So this will form a part of the preliminary examination syllabus under the topic geography and also in the mains examination syllabus under the topic geography. So in this article let us try to understand how is this cyclone Fani different from the normal cyclones that occur in the Bay of Bengal region. Now to understand the basics of tropical cyclones, let us go through the NCERT of class 11th, which is the physical geography. So in this it has provided that the cyclones are known by the names cyclones in Indian Ocean, by hurricanes in the Atlantic Ocean, typhoons in the Western Pacific and South China Sea, and by the names willy willies in the Western Australia. Now what are the conditions that are required for the formation of a tropical cyclone? So it is said that the tropical cyclones originate and intensify over the warm tropical oceans. Further, the favorable conditions for the formation and intensification of cyclones include large sea surface area with temperature which is higher than 27 degrees centigrade. Secondly, the presence of Coriolis force. Third is small variation in the vertical wind speed and a pre-existing weak low pressure area or low level cyclonic circulation and upper divergence above the sea level. Now, how does a cyclone receive its energy and the strength? So the energy which intensifies the tropical cyclones comes from the condensation process or the latent heat of condensation. And if there is a continuous supply of moisture from the sea, the storm gets strengthened. However, when this tropical cyclone reaches the land, it does not receive the moisture which is required for the intensification of the storm. And that is why after the landfall of a cyclone, it starts dissipating. So now let us understand why is Cyclone Fani different from other cyclones which are formed in the Bay of Bengal. Now regarding the tropical cyclones on the eastern coast, the primary season for the generation or formation of tropical cyclones on the eastern coasts are the months of April and May and October to December. So these are the two prime seasons when the tropical cyclones originate in the Bay of Bengal region and hit the eastern coast of India. Now the cyclones that form in the April and May month are normally weaker as compared to the cyclones which are formed during the October and December. So the cyclones which are formed in October-December month are intense and are strong. Now although the cyclone Fani has originated in the month of April, it is a strong cyclone and that is why it is unique or an outlier. So to understand why is the cyclone Fani of extreme nature, let us understand what are the factors that decide the strength of a cyclone and why are the cyclones that originate in the month of April and May different from the cyclones that originate in the months of October to November. Now normally in the northern hemisphere, the cyclones move in the northwest direction. And as the cyclone travels over the sea, it gathers moist air or the moisture which provides it the required energy, and that is how it gets intensified as we have learned. So it gets its intensity from the moist air, and as it is traveling over the sea, it gets intensified. Now if a cyclone spends more time on the sea, it becomes stronger. However, if it spends less time on the sea, it will not be that stronger. And that is the reason why the hurricanes which develop around US originate in the vast open Pacific Ocean. And that is why they spend more time on the ocean or the sea and they are much stronger as compared to the tropical cyclones. This is because the tropical cyclones that originate in the Bay of Bengal stay on the sea for a very short period of time. This is because the Bay of Bengal is relatively narrow and an enclosed region. So you can see that the hurricanes which develop in US are stronger as compared to these tropical cyclones that develop in the Bay of Bengal region. And the cyclones which develop in the Bay of Bengal region decay rapidly after the landfall because after the landfall they do not get moist air which is required for the energy which drives the cyclones. So the most important rule for the strength or the intensity of the cyclone is that the more time a cyclone spends over the sea, from where it gets the moist air required for the energy that is required for a cyclone to move, it will be stronger. And the lesser time it spends on the sea, it will not be that stronger. Now, why are the cyclones that develop in the month of April and May weaker as compared to the cyclones which develop in the month of October to November? So, regarding the cyclones in the April and May month, these are in situ cyclones, or the cyclones which develop only or originate in the Bay of Bengal. So, the cyclones which develop in the month of April and May originate in the Bay of Bengal itself. Now, as we have learned that the Bay of Bengal is a narrow sea or an enclosed sea, and that is why the cyclone gets less time to move over the ocean. And as soon as the cyclone hits the Indian landmass, its strength gets decreased. This is because the moisture is no more available. On the other hand, the cyclones which develop in the month of October to December are normally the remnants or the residual cyclonic systems which have emerged in the Pacific Ocean. So as you can see in this map, the cyclones which develop in the month of October and December are normally the cyclones which have originated in the Pacific Ocean. So as you can see, the cyclones move from the western Pacific towards the Bay of Bengal. Now, although these cyclones lose some of their strength while crossing the Southeast Asian regions, it again gets re-intensified when it crosses the Bay of Bengal. And that is why the strength of these cyclones which have originated over the Pacific Ocean and moved towards the Indian Ocean and finally on the Indian land have more intensity as compared to those cyclones which have developed in the Bay of Bengal itself. And these cyclones have more energy or intensity because these cyclones already have energy, and after crossing the Bay of Bengal, they again get the momentum because of the moisture which is available. And that is why their strength becomes more as compared to the cyclones which develop in the month of April and May. And the April and May month cyclones are weak because they originate on the Bay of Bengal, which is a narrow sea as compared to the Pacific Ocean. And it gets less time to move over the ocean to intensify. Now after this, let us understand how is this Cyclone Fani different from the other cyclones which develop in the month of April and May. Now normally the cyclones which develop in the month of April and May and which are in situ cyclones which develop in the Bay of Bengal, they normally originate around 10 degree latitude, which is close to the line which crosses the Chennai or Thiruvananthapuram. So as you can see in this map, it is somewhere around here. So normally the cyclones develop around the 10 degree latitude. However, in the present scenario, the cyclone Fani has originated very close to the equator. So the place of origin of the cyclone Fani is different as compared to the other cyclones which develop in the month of May and April. So this cyclone has originated very close to equator. Now as it has originated close to equator, it has got a long time to cover while reaching the Indian landmass. And that is why, as it has spent more time in the sea, it has got more moisture and energy. And that is why this cyclone has intensified. Further, as we have learned, normally the cyclones move toward the northwest direction. However, this cyclone, after moving in the northwest direction, has recurved towards the northeastern direction. And that is why it has again got some more time to spend on the Bay of Bengal Sea. Now as it has got more time to spend on Bay of Bengal or the sea, it has again received more moisture and energy, and that is why its intensity has again increased. So the two reasons why the cyclone Fani is of severe type is that it has originated near equator, and that is why it has got more time to spend on sea, and secondly, it has again recurved from the northwest direction to the northeast direction, and that is why it has got more time to spend on the sea and has received more energy from the moisture. And that makes the cyclone Fani different from the other cyclones which develop in the month of May and April. So now let us understand everything by the way of these diagrams. Now as these cyclones become intense because of the latent heat of condensation and the availability of moisture, if these cyclones spend more time on the sea, they will receive more energy in the form of moisture. And that is how they will become more intensified. So this is the normal rule for the intensification of cyclones. So regarding the cyclones which develop in the month of April and May, they are weak because they develop in situ in the Bay of Bengal. And that is why they spend less time on sea. And as they spend less time on sea, they receive less moisture or less energy and they are weak. However, the cyclones which originate in the month of October and November are strong because these cyclones are the remnants of the cyclones which have originated in the Pacific Ocean and have moved towards the Indian Ocean. And as these cyclones move over the Indian Ocean, they become re-intensified. And that is why these cyclones have high intensity and are strong. And regarding the recent Fani cyclone, it is strong because it has originated near equator and has recurved. And due to both these factors, it has got more time to spend on sea and has received more energy. And that is why it is more intense as compared to the other cyclones which develop in the month of April and May. So these are few points related to the tropical cyclones and why the cyclone Fani is intense. With this, let's move to the next article. This article on page number 13 reads that the central banks in developing countries are stepping up the buying of gold in the year 2019. So this will form part of the preliminary examination syllabus under the topic economic development. Now here it is important to learn why are the central banks buying more gold and what is the context of this news article. So according to the latest global demand trends report which is published by the World Gold Council, the overall global gold demand has increased to around 1,000 tons. And this demand has increased in the first quarter of 2019. And this has amounted to an increase of 7% over the same period last year. So this shows that the central banks of the developing countries are now buying gold more as compared to the last year. So let us understand why are the central banks buying more gold this time. So the foreign exchange reserves of a country or a central bank include gold, foreign currency assets, and special drawing rights. Now the foreign currency assets can include the treasury bills of other foreign currency countries. For example, the RBI buys the US treasury bills by using the dollars. Regarding the special drawing rights, you should note that it is a special reserve asset which has been created by the IMF or the International Monetary Fund. And the SDRs include a basket of 5 currencies. And these include the US dollar, the Chinese renminbi, Japanese yen, euro and the pound. And you should note that the latest currency which was added as SDR was the renminbi or the Chinese renminbi. And there was a question in the year 2016 regarding the latest currency which was added to the special drawing rights. Now, many of the countries' central banks are fearing that there will be volatility in the currencies because of various reasons. And these include the US-China trade war, volatility in global markets, Chinese economic slowdown, and fears of global economic recession. Now, due to these factors, the central banks of various countries are considering that in the near future, the currencies will be volatile. So in order to secure their foreign exchange reserves, they are trying to buy more gold. This is because the gold is not likely to face fluctuations in the near future. And this will act as a safe haven for their foreign exchange reserves. So this act of buying the gold by the central banks is aimed at diversifying the foreign exchange reserves. So rather than focusing more on foreign currency assets and special drawing rights, the central banks are now focusing on gold, which is being considered as a safe haven. And regarding the World Gold Council, it is an association consisting of world's leading gold mining companies. And it helps to support its members to mine in a responsible manner. Further, this World Gold Council has developed a conflict-free gold standard. Now, there are growing concerns that the newly mined gold could be used to finance armed conflicts in countries. And that is why there is a need to ensure that the gold that is sold in the markets does not indirectly finance such conflicts. So this conflict-free gold standard provides assurances that their gold has been extracted in a manner that does not cause, support or benefit the unlawful armed conflicts or contribute to serious human rights abuses or breaches of the international humanitarian law. So in short, the World Gold Council has developed the conflict-free gold standards in order to ensure that it does not finance the armed conflicts in any manner. So these are a few important points, and with this let's move to the next article. Now this section on page number 9, which deals with the poll call or the terminology which is related to elections, it talks about a phenomenon known as lottery. So this specifically addresses what happens when the two candidates in a constituency poll the same number of votes. So when two candidates of the same constituency get the same number of votes, it means that a tie has happened. And to avoid this situation and get a final result, the Representation of People Act provides for Section 102. And it states that if there is equality of votes and if one additional vote would entitle either of them to win, and if no decision has been made by the returning officer under the provisions of the Act, then the High Court decides by a lot or a lottery. And the candidate who wins the lottery wins the election. So this simply means that if there is a tie and the returning officer has not provided any result, the High Court will decide the result in case of equality of votes by a lottery. And whosoever wins the lottery will win that constituency. And previously, this has happened in the year 2017 in a ward election. And in that case also, a candidate won by the way of the lottery system. So this is a simple FAQ and can be important for us from preliminary examination point of view. With this, let's move to the next article. Now in this article on page number 8, the author has suggested that rather than creating more jobs for women, the focus should be to address the structural issues which prevent women from taking up work. So this will be a part of General Studies paper 1 under the topic Society and the subtopic Social Empowerment. So in this article, let us try to understand what are the factors or the reasons which are preventing women from taking up the work. Further, we will look at the problem or the issue of unpaid work or the care economy. And finally, we will look at the suggestions which have been provided by the author in this regard. So highlighting the problem of low participation of women in workforce in India, it is stated that India has one of the lowest participation of women in the workforce. And this is reflected by the labor force participation rate, which was about 31.2% in the year 2011, which in itself is low. And it has now reduced to only 23.3% in the year 2017. So the female labor force participation rate, which is already low, has also decreased in the past 7 to 8 years. Now let us understand what are the reasons for women having such a low participation in the workforce of India. Now some of the reasons for low participation of women in the workforce include low social acceptability of women working outside the household. So this can be clubbed under social norms. So the social norms are not favorable for women to work. Secondly, the lack of access to safe and secure workspaces. So the security is also one of the reasons for women not to take part in workforce. And this discourages the women from participating in the workforce. Third is the widespread prevalence of poor and unequal wages. So the wage parity is also missing. Further, lack of decent and suitable jobs for women. This is because now the women are also getting better education and the women are refusing to do the casual wage labor or work in the family farms. Now, as the educational status of women is improving, they are not taking part in casual wage labor, etc. And that is why they are demanding decent and suitable jobs. And finally, a majority of women are employed and are engaged in subsistence level work. And these works include agriculture in rural areas, and their participation in the agriculture in rural areas is not accounted for in the workforce. Further, they are involved in low-paying jobs, for example, domestic service, and petty home-based manufacturing in the urban areas. And all these are not decent jobs and are not accounted for in the workforce. And beyond these specific reasons which are related to women, the problem of jobless growth in itself discourages women from taking part in the workforce. This is because the jobs are not being created at the rate at which it is required to employ the whole workforce in India. And due to the jobless growth, it has an impact on the women's participation in the workforce. And finally, there is one important issue of unpaid work or the care economy. So let us look at that. Now, the care economy refers to the work done by women at households, especially in taking care of the newborns or the children. And also the household work or the daily household work that is carried out by women. And all this work or activity is an unpaid kind of work and is not accounted as an economic activity. And further, the unpaid work and the care economy now has an increasing trend. So this can include childcare, elderly care, collecting water at house, and socially the norm has been that these activities fall disproportionately on women as compared to men. And besides the household work which is unpaid, the women indulge in unpaid work in agriculture, animal husbandry, non-timber forest produce, etc. So due to the participation of women in the care economy, their participation in the main workforce of the economy is hindered. So these are few important reasons for the low participation rate of women in the economy. Now let us understand what are the suggestions which have been provided by the author in this article. So to address the issue of women's participation in the workforce, the government must address the numerous challenges that exist in the vicious cycle of unpaid, underpaid and the paid work. Regarding the paid work, the government's approach should be facilitating women's access to decent work and also eliminating discrimination in hiring and ensuring equal and decent wages. So the aim of the government should be addressing the problems which are faced by the women in acquiring work. Secondly, the government should also focus on improving the women's security in the public spaces. And regarding the unpaid work, it should be first recognized as an economic activity. Also, it should be reduced and it should be redistributed equally between men and women. And also, women should be remunerated for unpaid work like the agricultural work and participation in the animal husbandry, etc. And finally, the government must collect gender disaggregated household level data with suitable parameters in order to create effective policies which help the women in participating in the workforce. So concluding, the author says that unless the policymakers correctly assess and address the structural issues which keep women from entering and staying in the workforce, promising more jobs is unlikely to lead to the socio-economic transformation which India needs. So the focus of the government should be on addressing the structural issues which keep the women away from participating in the workforce. And some of the solutions provided by the author are these. So these are few points and can be used in answering related to the issues of women. With this, let's move to the next article. Now in today's newspaper, there are two articles which have already been covered in the previous DNS videos. The first is related to the Chandrayan 2 mission of the ISRO, and it was covered yesterday in the DNS of 2nd May 2019 in detail. So you can go through this video to understand the details of the Chandrayan 2 from your preliminary examination point of view. Further, this news article on page number 13 reads that the manufacturing PMI dips to 51.8% in April. Now the details of the PMI and its comparison with the IIP or the Index of Industrial Production has been covered in the DNS of 2nd March 2019. So it is important to note that who measures the Purchasing Managers Index. So it is published by Nikki and is compiled and constructed by the Market Economics. Further, the manner in which it is measured is also important. And how to interpret the PMI reading is also provided, and what is the importance of PMI. And further, its comparison with IIP has been provided in that video. So one of the important aspects of these indices is the body which releases these indices. So regarding the PMI, you should note that it is published by Nikki and the Index of Industrial Production is published by the Central Statistical Office. Now, which type of companies are covered? So the PMI covers only the private sector companies. However, the IIP covers both the private as well as the public sector. Further, PMI tracks the investor sentiment while the IIP tracks the actual production levels. PMI covers both the manufacturing as well as the services. However, IIP only covers manufacturing. Further, PMI is not used for GDP calculation while the IIP is used for GDP calculation to account for unorganized sectors. So these are few important facts and can become very important for us from the exam point of view. So to understand all these things in detail, you can go through the DNS of 2nd March 2019. Also, a link for this will be provided in the description box today. Now, after today's discussion, you can try and answer these questions, and the answer for these questions will be displayed after 5 seconds. The first question reads, consider the following statements about the tropical cyclones. The first is that the strength of cyclone depends upon the time which it spends on the ocean surface, which is correct. So if the cyclone spends more time on the ocean surface, it gets intensified. However, If it moves onto the land surface, then it becomes weak or dissipates. Secondly, the cyclones which occur in the Bay of Bengal between the October to December are re-intensified remnants of the cyclones of Pacific Ocean, which is correct as we have learned in today's analysis. So the correct answer is C, that is both statements 1 and 2 are correct. The second question reads, which of the following conditions are favorable for the formation of tropical cyclones? The first statement reads, large sea surface with temperature between 20 to 27 degrees Celsius, which is incorrect because the temperature should be higher than 27 degrees Celsius. Second statement reads, absence of Coriolis force. This is wrong because there should be presence of Coriolis force. Thirdly, pre-existing low pressure area, which is correct. So the correct answer is A, that is 3 only. Further, you should try both these questions and the answer will be displayed after 5 seconds. The first question reads, the special drawing rights of IMF consist of which of the following currencies in its basket? First is ruble, second is rupee and third is renminbi. So first and second are incorrect and renminbi is correct as it has recently been added to SDRs. And besides renminbi, there are 4 more currencies which include the US dollar, euro, Japanese yen and English pound. So here also the correct answer is 3 only. Further, this question reads, which of the following are correct about the Purchasing Managers Index? The first is that it is released by Central Statistical Office, which is incorrect because it is released by Nikki. Second is that it covers private companies only, which is correct. So the correct answer is B, that is 2 only. Now in our series of compilations related to the preliminary examination, the History and Culture Prelims Compass has also been released. And it includes various aspects of the ancient, medieval and the modern India, which includes the static part of the ancient, medieval as well as the modern India, and also the current affairs related to all these 3 sections. So some of the important topics covered in the current affairs related to the ancient history are, for example, Rani Ki Vav, Muziris Port, etc. And Rani Ki Vav was in news because its symbol has been printed on the new rupees 100 note. So that is why it can be one important aspect for us from the preliminary examination point of view. Further, it also has a section related to the art and culture. And it includes various art forms, for example, Indian classical dances, etc. And also all those aspects of art and culture which have been in news in the past 1 year. The third section is related to the medieval India and it includes various aspects of the current affairs related to the medieval history of India. For example, it includes the 37th UNESCO World Heritage Site of India. For example, the completion of 100 years of the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. So at least you should go through some of the current affairs related to the various aspects of Indian history and they can be important for us from the exam point of view. With this, we have come to the end of today's discussion. Now let's move on to the question for the day.